Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
We're talking about the UNA USA, very important organization affiliated with the United Nations in New York. And this is one of those affiliates around the globe that's involved as far as the global, what they actually call Sustainable Development Goals. And we're going to be talking about the Sustainable Development Goal 13, Climate Change and Impact Investing. We have Robin Hoppel, who is the ambassador for this global goal, and a very important person. And actually, she's been studying about impact investing and practicing for a long time. So Robin, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're really glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about climate change and impact investing. What is that, and why is it important in context of the UNA USA?
So in recent years, financial markets have really woken up to climate risk. And we've seen this with New Zealand and other countries around the world adopting the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure Standards. And impact investing is a little different. Basically, impact investing means investing in social good. So there's been a lot of discussion around negative screening and cutting out fossils. And impact investing is more positive screening, investing in something you like. And for me, historically, that's been clean cook stoves and other social programs like that.
I think that's really important, this impact investing or social responsibility. I mean, there's many different names that's been given to this over the years. But the impact investing coming through this climate change, why is that so important to think about impact and investing? How do we nuance those two words together?
So I mentioned clean cook stoves. My business school and undergrad previously worked with the Clean Cooking Alliance, which is affiliated with the UN Foundation. And they really focus on the people who are impacted by greenhouse gas emissions and by climate, which is predominantly women in developing countries. So I think with climate risk and finance, there's been a lot of discussion of like, oh, are banks going to lose money on fossils? And I think it's important to also look at the people who are directly impacted by climate in addition to financiers themselves. So that to me is what makes impact investing, well, so impactful.
And we're looking at it on a global basis. So we highlighting the Yale School of the Environment. Why is that important? But it really is, if you look at all the institutions of higher learning, even in the high schools, down into the middle schools, all the way to elementary schools, everyone is talking about the environment, climate change. Why do we need to have such a broad-based discussion with all these youth and continue it with the adults?
I think my generation has really pushed climate education because it's an issue we're so passionate about. So I think a lot of higher educational and other institutions are kind of responding to that push from young people. With the Yale School of the Environment, I currently work with the Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy, and we actually have a book coming out this month called Values at Work that's all about sustainable finance and what we're talking about today. So Yale School of the Environment does a lot of great work on finance and impact investing specifically, but they're definitely not the only one. And I think it's been so encouraging to see that global coalition come together.
And I think what you're finding is that everyone realizes that if we're not taking care of the environment's not going to take care of us. And this is the whole thing, is that every living being on the planet, and this is humans, it's plants, it's trees, it's the microorganisms, every living being on the planet really needs to care about and take care of each other, but also take care of everyone on planet Earth. This is a spaceship and a big neighborhood out there as far as the universe is concerned. So, looking at your impact investing, how do you see that now really making a change, addressing climate change, making a change for the future?
I think that especially for people in developing countries, a small amount of money can go much further.
Mhm.
So we've seen this with microcredit in some fair trade programs. And really, what may not seem like a lot of money to us in the West can be transformative for people who haven't traditionally had access to banking and credit loan systems.
Mhm.
So one of my professors in undergrad actually has a startup called Nova that includes microcredit, and he told us so many really inspirational stories about people who've never had access to reasonable interest rates before in their lives.
Mhm. Now, looking at the Global Engagement online series, how is that helping you as far as your outreach is concerned? And maybe we should define what is this Global Engagement online series, but how is
Mm.
that really translating into including everyone now, or at least the opportunity for everyone to be involved as far as climate change and impact investing?
Yeah, I think COVID has really transformed all of our lives. And that has brought some opportunity to connect in ways that we haven't before. So I know EmeraldPlanet has made a really heroic effort to go online, and I appreciate everything you all are doing. The UNA has basically supplanted some of our in-person events with GEOs. So we've been having panel discussions and other events to really connect students with people who work with the UN. Because obviously with COVID now in New York, it's harder to tour UN headquarters or have that traditional level of access that a lot of us NGOs had previously.
Right. Well, and we said never let a disaster like this go to waste.
Mm.
So we've actually produced 30% more television programs since this is all happening around us on a global basis, and we think that's very important. That we always have to be innovative, but not be reactive. We need to be proactive, and I think that's exactly what you're doing. I think this is a very cute sign. I've seen this before. What does this really actually mean?
I think it means that although some people have said like, oh, we'll go to Mars, we'll live on the moon, like these very kind of 1960s sci-fi visions, for a lot of people that isn't realistic. So for me, thinking about people living now in the developing world, I have friends in the Philippines who've been really impacted by recent typhoons. I think the reality is we need to save this planet because not everyone on this planet is going to be able to escape. So saying, we may have some billionaires on Mars during my lifetime, that isn't inclusive of all of us. So
And also it takes millions of dollars to get there. I mean, they have you can ride in space, you go up and you come down. This is not actually being part of a colony, but I understand the price tag could be $20 million just to do that. So this is not viable for a planet that's going to 9 billion people by 2038. We just don't have transporters for that many people. But climate change ahead. Uh, Really, it's climate change is already behind us because it's happening now. So, what do we need to be thinking about? It's behind us, but it's also in front of us.
I think being able to cope with disruption, I think you put it very well previously talking about COVID. We need to be able to react to disruptions in our lives, but also be proactive.
Mhm.
So this past spring, I was working with the UN Environment Program to basically move World Environment Day online because of COVID. And we were actually able to include like a much broader coalition of stakeholders. Like we had students from, I think, over 150 countries come to our virtual event, which was really incredible. And I think it shows that if you kind of take advantage of new opportunities, you can turn crisis into a turning point. So, yeah, it can be hard to be optimistic right now, but I try to be.
Well, the whole thing is, in a sense, what we're doing, Robin, we're really practicing the now for our future. And things were clicking along for, 3 or 4 decades. But I've been advocating that we need to, be more of a virtual world for at least the last 2 decades and even before that. And so that's really where we are as far as humankind is concerned. But getting youth involved, again, leadership today for the future as well. Why do we need to be doing this, and how does the the UNA USA really help mold, shape, and motivate these youth to really be engaged today and tomorrow?
I think meeting people where they are is really important. Just looking at this photo is kind of eerie to me, like how different the world was before COVID. So I think being able to adapt and meet everyone sort of where they are. And for students, that's typically in schools and colleges. So we have a lot of school and college chapters. We really encourage people to get involved or start their own chapter if they like. And I think having young people involved is important because we are often disproportionately impacted by climate change. So I work with sorry.
No,
Yeah,
I was just going to say you have 60% of the membership of the UNA USA, and that's an incredible number, 60%.
Yeah, young people are very involved. I know many UNA events I've gone to have had really incredible diversity of young people from colleges all around the country.
Well, and you're with kindred spirits, and that really helps in what it is you're doing. Now, going to this ripple effect, impact investing, tell us what this symbolizes, the ripple that we have right in front of us.
I think giving people, especially women, the opportunity to start their own businesses can be really transformative. So there's an old saying, if you educate a woman, you educate a village. And I think that's really been shown by a lot of development programs, is if you give women the opportunity to start small businesses, whether that's selling clean cook stoves, whether that's like small scale solar, she really pays that forward, and she's more likely to hire other women she knows, and she really passes that wealth along to her children and her extended family. So yeah, I think it is really inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the whole thing about it too is this is something I learned when I was doing my doctoral work, but I've been in 98 different countries. And what I observed is women are the backbone of not only their family, communities of faith, and all that, they're the backbone of the economy. And this is something we have a tendency to forget. And we should be very aware of that. If you leave the women out, the whole thing will just absolutely collapse. But going to this whole thing about the global climate advocacy and being aware of what's going on in the world, why is that important that we spread it across the entire society and not just be targeting the elected officials, the financial elites, and others like that?
I think people can have a tremendous impact on climate policy, even at the local level. So we've seen since the US pulled out of Paris and now is committing to go back in. So it sort of reminds me of like an outdoor cat, like they're in and they're out and they're in. We've seen tremendous coalitions of cities across the US say, like, we are still in with the We Are Still In coalition. And we've also seen great advances on clean energy policy at the state level through state public service commissions and even locally. So I think a lot of people are focused on national climate policy right now, which is understandable. But I would encourage everyone to just look also at what their state and local government is doing, because you can really have a big impact there as well.
Yeah, in many cases, the United States, the federal government is behind in many of these advocacies and also even global awareness. So when we dropped out of the UN charter for this setting up as far as the development climate situation, is that over 3,000 different signees from the United States have been added into this, and that's almost growing by week. So we have to realize that everything in the United States really does happen from the local level. But the negative impact as far as climate change is concerned, I mean, this is very real. I've been in 98 countries, and many of those you can actually see it on a day to day basis, but we have it right here in the United States. Severe drought, flooding, all that. So, how do we need to be aware of this as young people? And that was the last.
Yeah, I think young people really are impacted in terms of education, especially. So, one thing I think about is, especially with recent storms in the Caribbean, a lot of schools have been forced to close. And I think COVID is hopefully providing us a model for how to expand virtual education around the world. So I think as difficult as it's been, I'm actually doing law school online right now. So I'm like very sympathetic to people who are tired of Zoom school. It's been a journey this semester and last semester, but I think that offering more virtual educational opportunities and having that kind of added layer of fallback can be really impactful for students whose education has been disrupted for whatever reason.
Fantastic. Robin Happel, thank you very much as we create the Emerald Planet.
Thank you.